This is the internet court of truth and lies. If you've got something that you think is true in the media or you think it's a lie, you could bring in up to 8 jurors and basically make your case to them as a plaintiff as to why you think it's the truth or a lie. The skeleton of the case is around 8 verdict questions, which are never the perfect questions, but they're designed to be completely standard so they can handle any truth or lie. They help structure the conversation so at least 8 questions are answered about whether or not something is a truth or lie and what kind of truth or lie it is. Today's case is one of a series of 3 cases, and it's probably going to go to 4 or 5 cases by a guy named Weissmann, who's the guy on the right there, Andrew Weissmann. He was a prosecutor in the Department of Justice. He figured in the impeachment trials of Trump years ago. He's been writing interesting articles, reporting interesting things. He's very much a prosecutor who's had many years of prosecuting people, including some of the most significant cases where he sent business leaders to jail for lying. He's written a book called Liar's Kingdom, which is a very good book. This interview is because of the book. Right now, we're taking the second half or the third part of this interview. The first 2 parts we discussed last week. My argument was the first 2 parts. Trump was basically illegally setting up a $1.776 billion fund. The president can't create money that Congress doesn't approve to fund anybody he wishes to fund, including paying the January 6 protesters or whatever you want to call them money for the difficulties that the government caused in their lives. This is the third part of the Weissmann's problem. The first 2, the case was considered to be not true because it wasn't telling the whole truth. This one is not true. You'll see why. This is the case, and the case says that Trump in the White House was lying about what the settlement was about. This is because it also created a blanket IRS protection for him, his family, and associates for any extra money they make in this case. Weissmann declares this is a lie in this interview.
Your eye on the ball. There's thing 3. Thing 3 is not mentioned in the Axios case, and it's why this is not getting rid of this issue. There is something still remaining, even if they want to, quote unquote, get rid of the case in Florida, the IRS case where the judge has asked for a briefing on this issue. I know everyone's going, Andrew, can you just get to thing 3 already? Here's thing 3. Thing 3 is there is the general civil release of the president that Todd Blanche signed. That general civil release given by Todd Blanche.
Notice he already signed it. So that release is in place right now unless it's stopped.
Blanche, on behalf of all of us, the Department of Justice, was given to Donald Trump, but as part of a settlement. So you can't say, oh, we're going to get rid of the fund, but the release is still there. And you can be darn sure that Donald Trump is like, wait a second, I want that release. So that is still something that if you even remove the fund, that's still there. By the way, I saw in one of the notes here, there's from Michelle Taylor that there's obviously been lots of reporting that one of the people involved in helping negotiate this on behalf of the White House, or frankly, maybe even on behalf of the Department of Justice, because I don't think there's any daylight between them, is Boris Epshteyn and others. But those are all the sort of people and the underlings. Who the underlings were is fine, but you still have as the main player here, it's the president of the United States. This just is no way this is happening without his being involved. Anyway, I've gone on and on.
I'm going to stop that. I'm just trying to show what the release is. And there's a second part where he describes the details of the release, which is
Reporting deals with the full case. And the thing I'm going to be talking about, I'm doing it here, but I'm going to be on various MS Now programs talking about this issue of the general release, like not letting Donald Trump get that piece of it and pretend, oh, look over here, look at the birdie, and ignore the fact that my acting attorney general gave me a general release and gave the general release of no civil audits and no civil liability, past, present, future, whatever, is one that goes to him, his family, his companies. It's this really broad thing, and it's broader than even just tax liability. Personally, I don't think that's worth the paper it's printed on, and it would get litigated going forward, but it's one that it needs to be dealt with now.
so that's the argument, and it does appear that the story is accurate. The release has been said to be there by several other sources. That's basically the argument is that he's arguing again, this is something that's a lie by omission because people are omitting this general release. And the White House is very much supporting that omission. But the release is in place, and he just explained that unless the courts deal with that release as well as the actual offense, then this is crazy. He said the release is still there, and it can be used if he finds some other way to get money to pay all the people who participated in the insurrection in January 6th. There's been more repeated news that people are expecting to be paid. They've actually been told numbers, how much they're going to be paid, so forth and so on. So this is crazy. It's continuing to be confirmed that this is what's really happened. And this whole deal has not been really resolved yet, which is because, of course, it's going to take time to resolve it. My verdict is that the truth. It is the truth that this is another lie, and over time saying this is a lie. It's a funny way to say it, but I did. As the whole truth, this is the type of lie it really is. It's not telling the whole truth. I think people, if they understood what that release was, it's taxes to any IRS. Let's say that somebody pays his son $500 million or $100 million or whatever. It doesn't even have to come out of this. It could just be somebody pays his son $500 million. His son at this point doesn't have to pay taxes. He's an American citizen. And so this is crazy. He's making a group of people unassailable for taxation, and they're making lots of money. So this is about as bad a form of corruption as you can get. As I said, they're saying, look at the birdie over here, don't look at this birdie, because this birdie is the really bad one. And that's item 3. And it is a don't tell the whole truth type thing, I think. Is it nothing but the truth, the evidence that there are a whole bunch of lies being hidden, such as who the true recipients of the monies will be. We know a number of people have been told they're going to get part of this money. Clearly, he intends to give the money to somebody. And clearly, Trump is in total control of who gets the money once it's decided that he can do it. Weissmann is saying if this total release is also not canceled as unconstitutional, whatever, then the corruption will persist because he will come up with some money somehow. And the release will hold. In other words, if they don't explicitly get rid of the thing that's already signed. Is it nothing but the truth? I say, basically, no. There's a lot more information that we need to know exactly what's going on. What's the deceit? They're manipulating people into agreeing something. This is the third item by not stating the truth about what was hidden in the settlement. And so it's part of the settlement. but it's not part of the settlement. That's the problem with it. Is if you don't get rid of that action by the Attorney General, it's still live if the settlement itself doesn't get rid of it. Is the deceit or truth intended? Weissmann said it, I think it's clear that the thing that Trump is really going for is that release. I'm sure his lawyers told him you can't simply create $1.776 billion fund that as president you can do anything with you want because you're wearing a different hat or something. This is not constitutional. The president's not supposed to get money from other people for things. His income should be his salary. This is effectively it. So is the truth intended? Of course, the release covers him, so he won't get taxed on it. I think that it's absolutely intended. Weissmann was right. Trump wanted the release more than anything. And then if he can't come up with getting the money this way, he'll come up with getting it another way, but he'll still get the money and nobody knows how. He probably will. What's the motivation? So the motivation is to persuade you. You pay off criminals for what they did and might do in the future, then prevent taxation on that money or any other. The motivation is behind calling this a lie. This is bad. What's the social acceptability? I think this is in the category of the worst type of corruption of the government, illegally and constitutionally, to serve the interests of the criminals. There's just no way. If this goes through, this isn't just a blatant, in-your-face case of corruption that if it goes through, nobody can stop. What label would improve the social acceptability of the truth? I just put in, this is true, but manipulating. I really think this is such an obvious case. Everybody should sort of say it's obvious, but I don't know. I'm going to go through the jurors. Somebody should give me their summary of their verdict, and we can discuss it. 20 or 30 seconds for a summary, and we can discuss what your verdicts were. Juror one?
That's me. Like last week, it's one of those don't know situations. I do agree with you somewhat, but I don't know really a whole lot about the whole thing for real, to be honest. I'm still
Well,
looking
how do
into
you
this.
feel? How do you feel about the president having the Department of Justice sign a general release that he cannot be assailed by the taxing authorities for any taxes he
I
may
don't
owe?
like that at all.
I would think
I
that's a
don't like.
bad thing. Okay. That's just, and it's all for all future things. This is even after he's president. He can
Yeah.
take money and not report it to the IRS.
What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And that's one of those situations where even though you're the president of the United States, you still should be held to the same standard as what your citizens are being held to.
There's a clause in the Constitution that's called the Emoluments Clause, and what it does is it's supposed to restrict the president to being able to make money only through his pay.
You do whenever the president doesn't accept his pay.
He's paid like $100,000 a year, which isn't much to him, but I'm sure it's real money to him.
He could take his pay and kick it back to the American taxpayers, in my opinion, because like these tariffs and stuff, refunds, or the tariff refunds that we were supposed to be getting, they're going to the companies instead of the consumers. Yeah, if it wasn't for the consumers, the companies wouldn't even have business.
Juror two?
Yes. I think that the language in this thing is just ridiculous. It needs to be tightened up extremely because the way they have left it open, they've left it too open-ended, and that's probably why it's dead in the water right now. So I agree that it's just awful. I looked up to see what those two questions you said. I said, is it true a number of people from the insurrection are getting this money and that Trump's son won't have to pay taxes if someone gives him money? And they just said, I've hit on the exact points that sparked massive legal and political uproar. And they said, because it's put together so unusually, both of these claims are major flashpoints. Okay, and then they said before the Department of Justice officially declared the fund defunct and dead in June 2026. So it looks like it's not going anywhere, but
They declared the first two parts dead for the time being. They didn't declare the second part. Release is still signed.
and then I asked about this thing about there's an addendum attached to the IRS settlement, which says that was they dropped their lawsuit. So against the IRS, and
That's
this
the
is where it
suit.
all.
The release, they didn't, dropping the lawsuit did not drop the release. Unless it
Oh, okay.
explicitly drops the release. The release is already signed.
Wow, that's weird because they don't. It's
I
backwards.
know, this is why I'm calling this a lie by omission. They're not telling you that the thing they really wanted was that release.
Okay, then I agree with you.
So unless Brian tells me otherwise, I think I'm right. Juror 3?
Hey, it's me.
Oh,
And
God.
I have no reason to say you're wrong here. I will tell you that this comes off like Trump derangement syndrome because there are issues of separation of powers, there are issues of fact, but I get it. I understand what you're saying. And I'm not going to spend the amount of time it would take to go into federal law
Yeah,
on this topic. And I think,
we'll see it played out.
yeah, even as discussed last week, I think there's morally wrong, ethically wrong, and legally wrong. And whether or not this is legally wrong it is morally and ethically wrong. I will point out, though, that the way the product is built, your initial accusation actually says that Trump and the White House were not lying.
Yeah, I realize that. I really apologize. I'm still open to somebody who comes up with 8 questions that they think are the better questions that will handle any truth or lie always, because those questions are just meant to ask to say something about
Well,
either.
it gets the conversation going. I get it. I get it. I'm just pointing out a foible, not being overly critical. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, I've had some people over at CMU suggest other questions, and the problem is that they will argue you need a unique set of questions for every case.
Yeah.
And that's where I go crazy,
Yeah.
because that's ridiculous. That turns it into a real sovereign court case, which this is not.
It's all good. All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Juror 4?
That's me, Bob. Yeah, look, I agree with you. What Trump is doing is morally incorrect. He's using his position for his own personal, political, and presidential interests, and they all overlap in this, totally overlap. He's on both sides of the equation. It's just ridiculous, and hopefully it does not set a precedent. That's my only wish. When you're talking about the release, are you talking about the release when you say, because you kept saying release? I originally thought that you're talking about that someone released his tax information.
So the release is from the Department of Justice by the head of the Department of Justice, which Trump completely controls. The release is another sheet of paper that says this is a release for anything that in the past happened,
In the past.
or the present or the future, for all of these people, Trump, all of his family, and all of the people that he identifies for, whoever they're going to be.
It's got to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Honestly,
I would think that's why I call this a release for just blanket corruption, at least to escape from taxes, because all they have to do is get $2 billion from somebody and then not.
He thinks he's playing virtual Monopoly, and he's got this get out of jail free card all the time.
Yeah, he's not. That release really does it, and unless they get rid of it, they have to explicitly get rid of it because it's a separate document. So they got rid of, or they're saying they're getting rid of that setup of the 1776 fund. But that's just for now, they said. So there might be another thing that they're cooking. We just don't know what it is. But Weissmann is saying they have to get rid of the release. The judges have to get rid of the release too. And it's understandable that they're not doing it because the suits are being brought against the 1776 fund, not the release. You have to judges either dealing with both or different judges dealing with different pieces of it.
They're playing games with the law. They're playing games with the law. Honestly,
Yeah, they're playing games with
not
the
fair.
law, and this is what they've been. If you're in a position of power, getting good lawyers to play games with the law is a matter of money,
Sure,
and that's what it
that's
is,
bad.
and your will to do it.
Yeah, you have to lack a spine. Yeah, you have to lack a
You have
spine.
to
Yeah.
elect somebody with some morals and ethics.
Juror 5.
Five.
Me. Yeah, that's me. It's all seemed to have forgotten that this is all, the whole thing began because Trump was suing the IRS for releasing his tax returns.
Yeah.
That's what it was. There was some kind of iffy criminal, I don't know about criminal, but something wasn't quite right about the IRS behavior, right?
Yeah,
So I
and
just want to get that.
this covers that. That's still a suit in place.
Yeah.
It
So,
was suspended when he was became president.
but this is the root of the whole problem was the IRS's behavior. So I'm not saying anything, but what's interesting to me about this whole thing is that he's opened up this whole idea of a fund to compensate people who've been dealt badly by the previous Democratic administration. That opens up the same thing against himself when he retires or he finishes. We've now got something in place to somehow to really sanction the behavior of presidents who've done really bad behavior during their presidency. I'm just saying in the past we cut their heads off or things like that were kings of behavior. But now, so far, presidents and or leaders around the country, they behave badly, but yet they are proof of any kind of sanction. When they end their term, nothing ever happens to them. But now Trump is opening up this possibility of dealing with people. I'd love to see Trump, when he reaches the end of his term and gets either dies or gets kicked out or whatever it is, then has to face the sanctioning of the courts, because this is the real separation of powers in action now. Yeah. When the courts can really act against the bad behavior of a president when they're out of office. So I think he's going to be hoisted by his own petard, I think, if that's the right phrase. Eventually, at least that option is now on the table than before. So, yeah, it's interesting about this whole idea of the British Queen. As somehow, during her term, of course, she was given lots of presents, lots of kind of valuable presents.
Which queen, Elizabeth or Victoria?
Oh, Elizabeth. I'm talking about Elizabeth, but maybe we haven't Victoria as well. I don't know. But
Victoria was better at this than Elizabeth.
She was much better. She had her fingers in a lot of European pies. But anyway, all I wanted to say was about the Queen, who's just died. Nevertheless, with all these gifts and stuff that happened throughout her reign, somehow or other, a lot of those precious objects that were given to her have found their way into her private collection. And they are now hers, instead of actually being belonging to the head of state and actually belonging to the country as a sort of general consequence of her being the head of the state. So they belong to the country rather than to her personally. But she has got stuff in her collection now that were given to her, obviously, because of her role as head of state rather than personal gifts. You know what I mean? So Trump is behaving a little bit like this. It's all dictatorship behavior. We see it all over the world, throughout all the generations. It's the same stuff happening. And why does it happen? It happens because there are enablers who allow this to go on, because they're benefiting. We've got to get at the enablers too, not just at the single person. It's all the entourage. Somehow we've got to get at them.
I think that was the function of the Constitution. This is the emoluments clause. There's a clause in there.
Oh yeah, it's as clear as day. Well,
yeah, but there's a trick that they use, and this has been established now, which is legal, which is it can't be their stuff, but they can set up a presidential library. And that presidential library can contain all the things that were gifted to them. So they don't own the library. So they don't technically own the gifts, and the government.
But the state doesn't own them. Yeah.
Yeah, the state arranges to take those stuff out of storage and provide them for public viewing. That's an okay thing. I don't know if you've ever been to Washington, but you can see, for example, in the Smithsonian, a whole bunches of things. And there's huge collections of stuff that you can't see that should be seeable because there's so much of it that they try to bring out for the public as much as they can. Yeah. And that's okay. That's a way in which, they still have control of it because it's their library. But
Yeah.
the library is a non-profit. It's got a board.
It's a sort of trickery. But yes, I agree. All that stuff should be shown. It's very important, I think, in history. Yeah. And how it relates to the foreign policy and everything like that. Yeah.
So juror 6.
Okay, good evening. So I was not too familiar with the accusation, and therefore I had to do some research, obviously. And I saw that I read that this is potential fraud that is taking place. And within governments, there's always people trying to steal from the country, and therefore I won't be surprised that this is exactly what Donald Trump would trying to do, because people like him in such high positions are always abusing their power for all the wrong reasons, such as personal financial benefits and covering up their lies and corruptions because they feel like money would be their way out of everything. And then I also read about the immunity story, and I don't think that it would be so easy for an ordinary citizen to negotiate this immunity for future government
I've never heard of it before.
investigations. Yeah, that's what I read.
This is stupidly crazy. This is just the idea that the head of the Department of Justice grants somebody immunity from all prosecution, past,
Yeah,
present,
that's what
and
I'm
future.
saying. Money, people really think money can buy their way out of everything.
And I think that the argument that Weissmann was making, because he was with the Department of Justice most of his life, was that this could never have happened under the people that were in the Department of Justice before. That would have been stopped. It just
Yes,
it
yes.
was not in the. It was not in. That was exactly this sort of thing was just absolutely prohibited in the Department of Justice. Now the head of the Department of Justice is signed. So
Yeah.
this is.
Can I just say, didn't FDR go after a whole bunch of people that he didn't like? Kramer,
Yeah,
Supreme Court, and
as did Lincoln, by the way.
legislation.
Yeah. So a lot of these guys, but they went after them more legally. There was when they entered World War II, there were people who were arrested, and I believe some people who were put to death who wouldn't have been otherwise. I believe there were 8 Germans that landed on the seaside in northeastern America. They were captured as spies and killed. Under FDR, no, this was something that would not have happened if these were capable people. They were acting on behalf of their government, and you don't just kill them. You could put them away for the war. That's just my opinion. Juror 7.
Yes, Juror 7. Okay, so I do agree with you that I also feel like this is corruption and that we are actually rewarding criminals at the end of the day, because everyone is lying and trying to keep a secret to where this money is actually going to. Why can't they just confirm who will be the recipients of this money that they are creating this fund for? And then also, I feel like Trump is in a situation where he will lie to everyone just to benefit himself at the end of the day. So I do 100% agree with you. I don't feel like Trump should be president. I don't think he's a very wise man doing things that he is doing, because at the end of the day, criminals are getting more rewards than the citizens themselves.
The week after next, we're going to do the Liar's Kingdom book. I've got a trial on Weissmann's book, which should be an interesting trial because there's more to that book than just this one little piece. Actually, the book was written before this one little piece came out. It's a more general statement about exactly what you. Juror 8.
Like Juror 6, I was not really familiar with the whole case, but then I got to have some sort of research done. I actually agreed with you. The evidence suggests that the settlement was not only about resolving the IRS, the RIS dispute. I mean, there were also arrangements that benefited. I feel like they benefited Trump and the related parties. And if Trump and the White House did not present them in the settlement, then or try to present them while resolving the lawsuit, then the description was like incomplete. There were significant parts of the agreement that were omitted. It goes back to what I think there was a case where, as I was with you, this whole case proved to me that he is actually a weasel. I think you made a comparison with a
Weasel,
weasel.
yeah. Weasel.
Yeah, this case does prove that he is untrustworthy, and he's always trying to benefit. He's always looking to benefit himself and tries to protect him. But overall, I actually agreed with.
Yeah, so for the people who were in that case with the weasel, Trump is a weasel case, I don't know why, but my weasel has left my backyard and the chipmunks are back. So we can celebrate that weasels do go away. I have no idea why he left, but he definitely left, and slowly but surely the chipmunks have been resetting.
Setting something.
They're resetting up their city on my hillside.
That's right.
They found the holes.
Bob, you better be careful. They might have a whole UFC fighting match set up out there and you don't know it. That would be something there.
I don't have the time for this, but it would be interesting to find out from some real biologist how these rodents that are carnivores, how they work, because I've been here for my house over 20 years, and this is that one time that a weasel showed up and all the chipmunks disappeared. And then a few weeks later, I guess he ate all the chipmunks, and so he decided to go on to better land somewhere.
Yeah.
And
I think, yeah,
I'll look
think
that up
they're
and get it emailed
carnivores.
to you.
no, it's not. Anyway, but the chipmunks are back, or some chipmunk, or some new chipmunks settling in.
It's
Okay,
Alvin.
so-
Little Chipmunk.
Okay, so we'll see y'all next week.
Okay. Bye, Mom.
Bye.
Bye,
Okay,
everyone.
bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.